that reading makes you more empathetic. It's a way to escape your own life. It can take you to faraway lands. It can put you in other people's shoes and all kinds of things. It can even keep your brain healthy and reduce stress, helps you sleep better. Today we're going to be talking to Jennifer Lieberman about her book, The Year of What. Don't go away. We will be right back. If you are just joining us, then welcome. You are watching Books with Bridgetti. I'm your host, Bridgetti Uganda from Cape Town in South Africa. Our live stream is made possible by StreamYard and BeLive Media, helping you make meaningful connections. And a special warm welcome to you, our audience. This is an audience-centric show. So whether you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and also over on Amazon Live, then welcome to the show. We'll be talking today to Jennifer Lieberman about The Year of What. But before we invite her to join us, if you are watching us over on Amazon Live, or if you're wanting to just level up your game with live streaming, because this is how we do marketing these days. Just so that you know how I bring you this broadcast, I use a Logitech Brio camera with the trademarked right light and high dynamic technology. Then that helps to adjust light so that you look perfect on camera. I also use the Samsung CO1 microphone. It's a condenser microphone, and incidentally, it's Samsung introduced the world's first USB condenser microphone. And if you're not wanting to go all the way there, you can also use one of these clip-on microphones with a windshield. If you know what that is, that means if you're broadcasting outside, you don't want to hear all the wind noise and sounds, unwanted sounds in your broadcast or your stream. That's what you use a windshield for. So our featured guest today is Jennifer Lieberman. She is from Ontario in Canada. She holds a Bachelor in Arts and Philosophy from the New York University in Toronto. And I'm in Cape Town, by the way. We're global. We're truly global. So wherever you're watching us from, welcome to the broadcast. Jennifer has appeared in over 30 stage productions in Toronto, in New York City, Los Angeles, Europe, Australia, and she has also got an award-winning show, and we'll ask her about that. But today we're going to be talking about her novel, her best-selling novel, her Amazon #1 best-selling novel called The Year of What. In addition to this, she's also got a web series called Dump Water Divas and short films Leash and Details, and we'll ask her about that as well. But let's not waste any more time chatting. Let's invite her to the show, shall we? Jen, welcome. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Well, in Toronto, it's the morning, so good morning. I'm not sure what time it is in Cape Town right now.
Well, as we are truly, truly global, it's the afternoon for me. So it's good morning from Canada and good afternoon from Cape Town. And it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and how did you do this one woman show? I was watching a little bit of that. I'm like, wow. And how did that even start? I mean, it's a lot of people take years and years and years to even start writing, and you've done a one woman show. I think you're the second person I'm interviewing that's done a one woman show.
Okay.
How did you get started with that? How do you come up with your material? How do you know what you're going to say? It's like, do you ever get stage fright? Do you worry about, are you going to run out of words?
I definitely get stage fright. I feel like if you don't get stage fright, then you're not doing it correctly. I feel like anytime you go out there and you're putting something on the line, there's going to be a little bit of nerves. But doing this for almost 2 decades now as a professional performer, you find ways to make the nerves kind of work for you, or put that into that excitement, that nervous excitement into the performance. But yeah, I don't think I've ever, even when I've done the same show for weeks on end, I don't think I've ever gone out on stage without having a little bit of nerves going on. I wouldn't call it stage fright, but the adrenaline is definitely pumping, and you're at a heightened state of awareness for sure. But to get back to you asked so many questions in one breath. I came up with the idea for the one woman show because I wasn't getting the roles that I wanted. And I was new to LA and I was trying to get my foot in the door. And a colleague suggested that I create a showcase piece to show my range. So, writing the piece will show my writing ability and being able to take the audience on a journey from beginning, middle to end, feeling all the feels, because it was funny, heartfelt. There were some sad moments, and then also my range as an actor, because I played 10 different roles. I played all the people. So I came up with the material loosely based on my story, and then took very many liberties to bring the characters to life, to make them really kind of over the top and outrageous, and then also to give the story, the kind of excitement and gravity that it needed. So I started off with, they say start with what you know, and then I borrowed a lot.
Wow, 10 different people. That's quite interesting. And are they usually the sort of same people, or do you recreate every show?
No,
Um,
so they're the same people. It was a full like script. It was scripted. So it was the same show every night, and we worked on it for quite a while. I worked on the show for a couple of years to get it to where it was when I took it to a festival in New York. Yeah, I had been working on it for a good 2 years at that point. Um, going through different rewrites and different development stages, because every time you do it in front of the audience, you kind of figure out, like, did this joke land? Am I getting, a laugh here? Am I not getting a laugh? Why I'm not getting the laugh? Is it my delivery, or is it just that the jokes aren't funny? And that's actually the great thing about live theater, is you kind of work it out as you go. You don't really know how it's going to land until you do it for an audience, and then the audience kind of helps you dictate and shape the show. So that was an amazing experience. Just kind of in real time being able to go through the process of rewrites, because I'd do a performance, and then after the show the director and I would meet in the dressing room and we would talk through, like, okay, they really laughed at this bit, and there was silence at this part, nobody was really kind of getting it. So I felt like that was kind of invaluable, having that luxury of being able to rework it in real time.
Mm. Now I have to ask you, I absolutely have to ask you, with the pandemic, how have you been able have you been able to pivot?
Yeah, I actually have. There have been a few things that I've done during the pandemic, because obviously theater has not been open for quite a while. The theaters are not back open in Toronto yet. So I've done a few things. Well, first of all was publishing my book. And then so there was the novel Year of the What. And then I also published 2 how-to books during the pandemic, because I recorded my own audiobook. So in the play, I played all the characters. So in the audiobook, I do all the voices and I do all the characters again. And I had an opportunity, even though I wasn't performing on stage, I was performing in a little cocoon in my closet almost every day for several months, getting the audiobook down. And I actually made several mistakes, and I had to throw out the first version. I recorded the whole book. It took me a couple months to do the first version of it. And I made some mistakes, and I had to kind of toss it and start from scratch. So a friend of mine, once I got through it and was successful with the second time around, she suggested that I write a how-to book for other authors on how to record and publish their audiobook. So I
Wow,
did that. And I also started a vlog during the pandemic where I interview fellow authors about doing things they never thought they would do. It's called I Never Thought I Would, because usually when we push ourselves to do something we never thought we would do, some really wonderful opportunities can open up and unfold in front of us.
that is amazing. So your how-to book, when is that releasing?
It is
And
released already, and it actually hit #1 on Amazon 2 weeks ago.
oh
So
wow,
that was released about a year ago.
congratulations. Oh
Thank
my goodness.
you.
I am definitely going to go and have a look at that book because I think that is something invaluable for a lot of authors. I know some authors resort to hiring a voice talent.
Mhm.
Uh, but if you can do your own audiobook, if you have a guide to how to do your audiobook, I think that is phenomenal. That is
Yeah, and
absolutely wonderful.
I take the reader through, like, realistic expectations, like a realistic timeline. This isn't something that you're gonna achieve in a month or 2 months. This is gonna be like a 4 to 6 month commitment, depending on how long your book is. And what I talk about and what I offer in the book is different vocal exercises to work on your vocal stamina, because it's just completely unnatural for us to be speaking for long amounts of time without somebody else interjecting and having a back and forth conversation. Even if people do speeches, even people who are professional public speakers, you're not speaking for more than a half hour at a time, an hour max, without taking a break. And so I definitely have vocal exercises, and I suggest that at least a month before you're even thinking of recording the book, you start doing vocal exercises on a daily basis to build up your vocal stamina, so you don't lose your voice, so you don't injure your vocal cords. So it definitely has technical tools. It suggests rehearsal periods. It suggests how to map out a timeline realistically, because even realistically, you can't record 7 days a week. Your voice just isn't going to want to do that. And vocal quality is important to the recording as well, making sure that you have like a relaxed voice that's not strained or exhausted.
Those are really excellent points. Do you have a copy of the book handy there to show everyone?
I actually don't,
Or is
but
it
it's called Make Your Own Break: How to Record
okay?
and Publish Your Audiobook in 7 Simple Steps. And it's on Amazon. It's available in print or Kindle. It's a very short book. It's only about 50 pages, and that's including a bunch of exercises to do, breathing exercises, because obviously if we don't have breath, we can't make sounds. So making sure that we actually take the time to be mindful of our breath, mindful of our vocalization. And then, of course, it gets into like the technical aspects of what software you need to record, some minimal equipment, how you can spend less than $100 on Amazon and still be able to get the equipment that you need. So yeah, it's really handy, and it also encourages authors, because a lot of authors will say, "Oh, well, I'm just the writer. I'm not a voice actor. I'm not a performer." But who better to tell your story than you?
Because you can put the you can put the emphasis where you really want it, right? Because
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
your story. So you don't have to spend hours making sure that somebody else conveys that the way they really would like to. Do you touch in your book? Do you also touch on people? And I think this is often the hesitancy with people wanting to get onto camera or onto a stage. People don't like their own voices.
No,
And it
and I
does
actually address
take a
that.
while to get used to the sound of your voice. So I was wondering, did you address that in the book?
Yes, I definitely do. I address basically all the insecurities and all the reasons that an individual can talk themselves out of not doing it. It's so much easier to talk ourselves out of things than talk ourselves into things. This is something that I discuss all the time when I talk about creativity, because so Make Your Own Break is the umbrella where my how-to books are under, but it's also a consulting business and a coaching company that I have for other creatives. Because if you're waiting, I feel like in the creative world, so many times we're waiting for an opportunity, waiting to get a foot in the door. But we have to reframe the situation and think, okay, how can I make my own break? Because if we're just waiting around, we're going to be waiting a long time. That, taking this conversation full circle, that's why I created my one woman show, because I was sick of waiting. I was sick of waiting for a part, waiting for an audition, and then you do get a part, and because you don't have enough experience, you're not getting parts that you can actually shine in or show your real ability or where your real talent shines. So being able to create a project for yourself that you're in control over is a huge gift, because it's not being dictated to you by somebody else. And people, we make judgments by looking at people all the time. So of course, in the entertainment business, people will look at me and decide, oh, you can play this type, but you cannot play that type. And for me as a performer, it's more fun playing the types that people don't see me as than playing the types that people can just easily, in their imagination, fit me into that person. Those aren't the roles actors really want to play. They're the roles that we're happy to take to pay the bills. But the types of roles actors get a thrill out of playing are the ones that stretch us the most.
I tend to agree with you. I was listening to one of your videos on over on Amazon, and you were talking about how the thought of doing what you wanted to do on stage was more scary than actually being on stage. And I thought
Yes.
that's so true. We talk ourselves out of doing something, and it's not really the act of doing something that's scary. It's just overthinking it that allows ourselves the opportunity to to think ourselves and talk ourselves right out of an opportunity. So sometimes
Yes.
we can be our own best enemies in it.
Yes, definitely. And so that's something that I just started doing in my life every day, is just pushing myself to push through the fear. You just have to push past it, because I was terrified of doing a one-woman show. I never thought I would do a one-woman show. I produced 2 one-woman shows for friends that I had met in acting class when I first moved to LA. And watching these women, I resolved, like, I am not that talented. Like, I'm talented. I have my little wheelhouse and my little box. These are the things that I do inside this box, and I do them really well, and I'm really comfortable with them. But the one woman show world was not in my box. That was not in my little box of things that I do. And it was like a whole different mountain of, that I would have to climb, and I would have to get in shape for, and I would have to, develop new skills and new tools. And it was terrifying for me. And it wasn't until I actually sat down and started doing it that I realized how much fun it was, and that I realized that I could surprise myself with my own imagination, and I could surprise myself with different accents that would like come out of my mouth, and different ways of, kind of being the dude, or being this character, or being, the Ukrainian esthetician who gives the bikini waxes, each time one of these things, like, something comes out, and then you get so excited, like, oh my God, how I can do that. I didn't know I could do that. And then, like, your toolbox just kind of grows and grows and grows. And I feel like as an artist, like, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a writer or a painter or a performer, it's like the toolbox should be ever expanding. As we grow, as we push ourselves to go in new directions with our creativity, it should just be ever expanding.
Absolutely. So now you have branched out from there and also wrote your first novel.
Yes. Yes. So this is my
How
first
did that
novel.
how did that come about?
So this is an adaptation of the one woman show. So I had workshopped the one woman show for 2 years. I ended up getting to a festival in New York. I ended up winning the Audience Choice Award at the festival. And so the title was quite racy. It's called Year of the Slut. I'm allowed to say that word. It's not one of the banned words in broadcasting. So, and it's a coming of age feminist piece, a sex positive piece about female empowerment, and how women shouldn't have to feel shamed about their sexual desires and sexual freedom. But it's about a character who is ashamed of all of those things and has to kind of get past her own hangups.
But there's
So
lessons in there for us, right? I mean, it's amazing how, we grew up in an era where it was a taboo subject. Nobody ever talked about it. Our mothers didn't teach us anything.
no,
No.
no, exactly. It's interesting. We're taught, to be abstinent and then to be married. And there's this whole in-between section of a female's life, especially now that women aren't getting married until they're older. It's very uncommon, especially in Canada and the US, it's very uncommon for a girl to get married right out of high school. It's even uncommon for a girl to get married right out of college. So by the time girls are getting out of college, they're 22, 23, 24, and they're going to have, 5 years, 10 years of dating before they actually settle down with their partner. So there's this huge gap in the world between being a teenager who's just supposed to be abstinent and then being a married adult in their 30s, because the reality is a lot of women are not getting married until they're just about 30 now. So there's this whole gray area that nobody really talks about in terms of sexual health for a female. Because when it comes down to it, it's actually a healthy biological function to have a normal desire. So that's kind of what this book is about. It's about a naive character comes out of her first relationship and is uneasy with the idea of being promiscuous, and she has to figure out what that word means for herself. Because having a romantic relationship or a romantic encounter with one or two or three or five guys, before she finds the one and gets married, is actually just a normal part of living her life. So she's kind of coming to terms with that idea. And she has a very racy, promiscuous roommate who's a dominatrix, who's kind of egging her on her journey to have some sort of discovery.
And the general storyline for the book, is it purely fictional, or did you draw from
So it
real life
started from, yeah,
experiences?
it started from my own life. Like, I found myself heartbroken in New York out of my first relationship. I waited. I thought he was the one. I thought we were going to get married. And then I found myself in the daunting New York City dating world in my mid 20s. And I really didn't know how to navigate it. And because I was in my 20s and the character's in her 20s, she's not as self assured and she's not as confident as the women in Sex and the City, because those women were in their mid 30s when the show began. So they had 10 years more life experience and confidence and mistakes to learn from. So this character is younger and is going through that journey of how she would become that confident, self-assured woman.
But I think, it goes deeper than just that, because I think a lot of those principles can be applied in other areas of a woman's life.
Definitely.
Um, you know,
Definitely. And that's what she realizes. And she realizes, until she doesn't accept her own power, that she's going to be helpless in all the other aspects of her life too. So through dating and through getting more confidence and through being able to assert herself with men and say, oh, wait, no, that's not important to me, or this is important to me. I have a career too. My life isn't just about being your girlfriend or being your wife, because those are some lessons that the character Dana has to learn as well. As much as she wants to be in love and wants to be with a man, her whole life can't 100% be wrapped up in pleasing him. She has to find out what pleases her in her own life before she'll ever be in a position to please somebody else.
it's amazing how, the underlying messaging that we we were raised with as girls have carried on into so many different facets um, of our lives. And it really, I think, for women, it takes us a long time to find our voice,
Yes.
to truly realize who we are, what we want, and what we're going to do with that. It takes, I think it takes us so much longer, whereas men are raised to be strong, forceful, boisterous, you know, whereas when women express themselves, they kind of made to feel, you know, take a seat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot more judgment from society when you're a woman. There's more judgment coming from women. And I think the judgment comes a lot more from women than it does come from other men. Um,
Do you touch on
because
that in the book? Because that's quite an interesting conversation as well. The more I talk to women, I'm seeing so many women from across the globe talking about the same thing, that they feel a lot of the judgment is often from other women, and it always
Yeah.
fascinates me that why do we do this to each other? We're supposed to, there's a saying that I learned from somebody in one of the groups that I'm in, that, you can help someone. I've just forgotten the phrase now, but as you're climbing the corporate ladder or social ladder or whichever ladder you're climbing, it doesn't detract from you to help another woman. In
No.
fact, it's an accolade to you to help another woman get a level up as you go up to the next level,
Yeah.
and somehow everybody doesn't get that memo.
No, I think there's a scarcity mentality out there for sure. And I also think there's some sort of a novelty to being the only woman in the room in the boys' club. So there's different reasons, in our psyche why it happens. But yeah, I think scarcity mentality is definitely a big one, is that people don't believe that there's room for everyone, that there's only a certain amount of spots, so they need to get their place, you know, because if they don't get it, then there's no room for them. I believe there's room for everybody. I believe that it doesn't matter what field you're in, whether you're a creative, whether you're in the corporate world, there's room for everybody. There's a huge population on this planet. And if you have a good idea, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's for a business or for a book or a story, we all want those new good ideas. There's room for them, you know. So I don't subscribe to that mentality. And I
Collaboration over
definitely
competition, right? That's what I always say is a good
no,
motto.
and that's the thing. Nobody's trying to do what I'm trying to do, and that's what I've realized. Nobody's trying to write the stories I'm trying to write. Nobody's trying to achieve the things that I'm trying to achieve. So that's fine. There's room for you to do what you want to do, and there's room for me to do what I want to do.
You
So
know, I really subscribe to that thought. It's like people say, a couple of years ago, I mean, live streaming, just as an example, is still relatively speaking in its infancy. Even though
mhm.
it's been around for a few years, it's still in its infancy. It hasn't really seen its full potential. It's still going to expand um, a lot more. And so you hear people saying, should I get into it? Isn't it saturated? And I'm saying, no, no, it's not saturated. It's like a hairdresser, right? Somebody wants to become a hairdresser, and people will say, well, there's a gazillion hairdressers out there. The market's saturated. No, it's never going to be saturated because no one else
Exactly.
is going to have your personality. People will go miles because they like you, they like your style, So it's never going to be saturated for anything.
Yes, I definitely agree. And that's the thing too. No two people are ever going to do the same thing the same way. And like you said with streaming, it's still relatively new. And yes, there are a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon. And why not? There's enough people out there. You can have 10 shows with 100,000 viewers. It's not about just having one show with 1 million viewers. Like, there's enough categories of interest. There are enough people out there that if there's an interest in what you're doing, you're gonna find your audience, and your audience is gonna find you. And you don't have to reach everybody all at once. It's like the network television model. There used to be only 4 channels. So millions
Yeah.
and millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people had no choice but to only watch those 4 channels. Now, how many billions of people are in the world? And yeah, we've got more channels, but we've got so many people. There's enough to support it. If it's their niche, if it's their subject matter, if it's something that they're interested in, they're going to find it.
Absolutely. So don't ever be a non-starter because you're afraid of the competition, or that, you
Exactly.
have the scarcity mentality just hurts only you, no one else. You literally just hurting yourself. Let's talk a little bit more about the year of what. Do you have a passage that you would mind reading for us?
Sure, sure. So I'm going to read something from chapter 2. Chapter 2 is called The Movie Star. All right, so here we go.
Awesome.
It was the middle of January, and it had been a month since the Russell disaster. I started the new year determined to get back on track with my own life and stop worrying about a relationship or lack thereof. I landed a small role working on an independent horror film that started shooting the second week of January. On my last day, well, my only day of work, I heard the producer say they were short-handed in the art department. I saw my opportunity and offered to work behind the scenes. The producer agreed, and I was hired to stay on for the remainder of the shoot. My job consisted of dressing the set, gathering props, making fake blood, and basically doing whatever they needed. My real boss, Henry the Mogul, loved me. So he let me take 3 weeks off from my assistant job to work on the movie. He knew acting was my dream, and being a dreamer himself, he was never one to stand in the way of dreams. He also happened to be in St. Bart's for an impromptu getaway with his latest model slash girlfriend, so it was a good time to ask for a favor. The movie was a low budget horror film shooting on a farm upstate. There was a main house, a large barn, and a few cabins and sheds scattered around the 4 acres. The property was lovely, covered in snow, but once the sun went down, the place felt really creepy with dilapidated barns and rotting trees leaning lopsided, casting weird shadows. It was the perfect setting for a horror flick. I reported to Asher, the production designer. He had dirty blonde hair, brown eyes, was cute in a scruffy puppy kind of way. He made it clear he was into me, but I had my eye on Ray, the production manager. Ray was tall, dark, Puerto Rican, and really hot. More built and muscular than Asher, and in general just seemed to bathe more frequently. He also was an actor and did theater in the city, so he and I had something in common. The days were long and grueling for everyone. Asher constantly giving me hugs and encouragement. Ray became a shoulder to lean on as we both commiserated about our recent breakups and move outs while we smoked in his car after we wrapped each night. He drove me home a few times when we stayed late cleaning up, assuring me driving through Hell's Kitchen was on his way home to New Jersey. One night on the drive home, I confided in Ray. I wrote a play. I was thinking of submitting it for a reading at the theater company I'm a part of. I said, half proud, half embarrassed. Oh, yeah? He perked up. It's a short one act with two characters, a male and a female. Would you maybe want to read it with me in some time? It's never been read aloud before. I thought Ray would be great to play opposite me. I also hoped my play could be a way for us to spend time together. I was starting to really like him. I want to read it, he said, leaning across me to open my door. Bring it down, I'll wait in the car. Now? I was surprised at his interest. He nodded. I darted up 6 flights of stairs, printed a copy, and ran it down to his parked black Eclipse. A few days went by and he never mentioned my play. I knew he had a lot on his plate with the film, so I didn't bug him. He was the only person I'd given it to, other than Kelly. I was nervous about what he might think. Maybe he thought it sucked because he never mentioned it again, and neither did I. I felt stupid for sharing it with him.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, I can tell that you are a really, really, really good, compelling storyteller. Do you
Thank
have
you.
any tips for somebody that's wanting to, an aspiring author? Because I think that the aim is always to write in such a way that people want to hang on to every word and that they want to turn the page, keep reading, stay up all night with a cup of coffee because they want to get through the book. And that requires a skill. Not every author has automatically got that. Did you go to writing classes, or are you a
Yeah,
natural
I've been
storyteller?
in and out of writing classes and writing groups for years. I started writing when I was about 8 years old. So I've been writing scripts, plays, poetry, short stories for what feels like my whole life. Um, and then, so this piece, when it was written for the stage, was written very differently because that was all about a performance. So when I finally adapted it into the novel, it gave me a lot of leeway in terms of like really creating the world, really using description, really getting into the showing as opposed to telling of the story. But in terms of advice, I would say just pick up a pen and start to write, and trust your own voice. Trust the way that it comes out. Don't worry about trying to make it poetic or trying to make it flowery. You're going to go back over it several times anyways. So initially, I would say just try and get the emotion out.
Mm. It's interesting also that normally people write the book and then they turn it into a script. That's kind of
Yes.
the way it usually goes. But you've done it the other way around. But you've also done script writing. So was it quite was it quite a shift for you, going from script writing to writing the
Yeah, it
novel?
was definitely a shift, and there was definitely like a different style to it, because when you're writing a script, the audience only hears the dialogue, and everything else is just kind of stage direction. It's just direction of what's going to be on the stage and when the actor picks it up or uses a particular item. So this gave me so much leeway because whatever I wrote down is what was gonna be. I didn't have to worry about um, telling a story in a concise way, that I only have a certain amount of time on stage, and I have to, I have to get it in a certain amount of words in a certain amount of time. So the book gave me a lot of leeway in terms of I just had the freedom. I had the freedom to create a story. I had a freedom to really describe who these characters are and develop them. And that, I think that's the other thing too, because I played the character on stage for 2 years. By the time I sat down to write them, not just Dana, the main character, but her roommate Kelly and the guys that she dated and a few of the other close friends in the book. By the time I was writing it, I had such a personal connection with each one that it
Mm.
really enhanced the process for me, because I felt like I already lived so much of these people.
And tell me also, I also like to ask authors the cover. How did you decide on the cover of that book? And did you hire an artist to do it?
Yes. So I hired an artist. Her name is Michelle Rayner at Cosmic
Let me put you on
Design.
full screen for a second because that's such a stunning cover.
Thank you. So, yeah, so it was a collaborative effort. I had a few girlfriends helping me. Um, it is a buddy story. It's really the love story here is the love between the two friends. Although Dana's looking for love and looking for the guy, it's really a refreshing story about these two women that are just supportive of each other unconditionally. And there isn't any, well, there's a little judgment, but they get over that quickly because, like we said a few minutes ago, like we can't help judge people when we see them, or we can't help judge a book by its cover. So Michelle was awesome. It was one of my writing partners for my theatrical stuff. I have different writing partners I work with. She was the one who came up with like the two girls and the city in the background. And then another friend said, oh, well, she's dating so many men. You got to have some of the men in the windows.
Oh, wow. Let's
Um,
have a look. Oh,
so yeah, but Michelle drew all of this by hand. She's so talented. And there was quite a bit of back and forth trying to come up with the cover. And like I say, everything takes a village, because it did. I had different girlfriends and different colleagues taking a look at it, going back and forth. What's it missing? What's it need? Even just like the detail of like putting a couple of tattoos on Kelly, having her dominatrix whip, and just kind of having her as like the grittier character, and Dana's the more proper, buttoned up, naive character, so just trying to like convey that on the cover. But yeah, I'm so pleased with the work that Michelle did. She's quite amazing.
that is gorgeous. And I love that you were able to explain the detail um, behind that, because one may miss that kind of information, but now that you've explained why
Yeah.
you have that level of detail um, in the cover. And it's one of the reasons why I love doing these shows, because you get to explain things to the audience that they otherwise may not have known about the story or the book. I mean, it's there's so many details going into getting a book published, down to like, what size is the book going to be, what kind of paper is
Yes.
it going to be, how's the cover going to feel, you know there's a lot of things. Did you go traditionally, or did you self-publish?
I self-published. I tried for several years. This book was a many-year journey for me, of getting discouraged and putting it aside, and doing a short film or producing a web series, doing a play, coming back to it. So yeah, it was definitely a journey and a lot of trial and error, because I had never published something. I didn't know what was needed. And I went through a few different editors trying to find the right fit of somebody who got what I was trying to do, who was like the right genre for my piece. So yeah, it was a lot of, there were several times where I just gave up on it, and I had no intention of moving forward. And then friends of mine would, be like, whatever happened to that book you were working on? Weren't you writing a book? And I'd be like, yeah, it didn't work out. What do you mean it didn't work out? It was pretty good. You should publish that.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it was,
And I can imagine. And talk a little about your marketing process, because that's another story. Once you've published the book, it's not going to sell itself. And a lot of new
no.
authors
Yeah.
come unhinged, or
So
they this reality check of like, okay, this is not going the way I envisaged.
no, exactly. So starting my vlog was one of the goals, was like to connect with other art authors and start building an audience that way. And I have a publicist, Mickey Mickelson at Creative Edge, and he has been the biggest game changer for me, because marketing is just one aspect about it. But even with marketing today, with ads on Amazon and Facebook and Instagram, it's so saturated. It's really hard, unless you can get connected with an influencer who has, hundreds of thousands of followings, who are quite loyal. I found the marketing to be so daunting. And it wasn't until I started working with my publicist that I really felt a big shift. And I would say that that has been the biggest game changer for me in terms of getting the book out, for sure.
Absolutely. It definitely is worth it. And I, having spoken to numerous other authors, I know that Mickey is doing, of Creative Edge, is doing a great job.
Yeah.
He has got a phenomenal um, portfolio of amazing authors.
Yeah, and what's amazing about that is he fosters a community. So I'm friends at this point with, at least half a dozen artists that are part of Creative Edge, and we share information with each other. We compare notes. We talk about, different literary contests that you might be a good fit for. We hear about opportunities. I'm constantly passing opportunities along to other people that aren't the right fit for me. They're not the right fit for my book. So why should I withhold them? If I know somebody who can benefit, like, I'm happy to just pass the email along. And I feel like that's really amazing. Like we were talking about, bringing your friends with you, bringing another woman with you. And I'm a huge proprietor of that philosophy because, yeah, anytime I see an opportunity, if I know somebody who's good for it, I'm so happy to pass it along. And I feel like the other authors with Mickey have also been just as generous with sharing information. So, having him on my team has been great, but also being able to connect with other clients of his has been an invaluable experience as well.
Nothing like a great community. We've been the one of the other shows that I've produced is called the Writers Corner live show
Mm-hmm.
that we do once a week, that I do with Mary Elizabeth Jackson. And
Yes,
um, we haven't done one for this year yet. That the Writers Corner live show has been running for 3.5 years, and for the 2 years, and we haven't done this year yet because it's just been such a busy year. But we
mm-hmm.
found that what we've done is we did a Zoom with just all the authors who'd been on the show. We invited everyone and said, listen, we're going to do a huge big celebration. And the authors just loved the ability to get onto the same screen with other authors, and people were networking with each other during the show and after the show. And there's power in community. There's just so much fun. And
Exactly.
yeah, so it's very,
Yeah,
very,
I know Mary. Mary's wonderful. She's actually like so generous. She introduced me to one of her contacts. She's been a great help, so exactly. It's just really nice to be in a community of people who want to see others succeed.
and that's it. People who get who find that seeing watching other people grow and succeed makes you feel good. I feel
It
good watching
does.
somebody, celebrating with one another. Is good, because when you have your win, the others are going to celebrate with you. Just be happy for people. Why
Exactly.
can't we do that? So I wish I really would like this book to grow. I mean, it already became an Amazon #1 bestseller. How many books have you got out now, Jen?
So I have three and a half. So this is my novel, Year of the What. And I also have two how-to books. The first one is Make Your Own Break: How to Master Your Virtual Meeting in 7 Simple Steps. The second one is Make Your Own Break: How to Record and Publish Your Audiobook in 7 Simple Steps. And then the half book is a poetry book that I had out very briefly, and I took it down, so I'm not even counting it anymore. But it's still, if you look at my Amazon author page, I think it's still listed on there, even though it's not available.
Wow, wow, wow. I'm actually just putting Make Your Own Break on screen here, because I really think that that is a phenomenal how-to guide.
Thank
Um,
you.
because a lot of people need to go. And if you haven't heard of the book before, I didn't, but I'm definitely going to go and check it out on Amazon, because I think it's so useful. So it's a series, Make Your Own Break by Jen Lieberman. Go and check that out over on Amazon. It is available, and also go and have a look at Jen's author page. I think sometimes people don't realize that there's a wealth of information on the author page,
Hmm.
stuff that you won't generally know. And I see, a lot of authors, not all authors do, not even all authors are aware of the fact that they can go and update information there. It's not a one and done, I put my book on, then, that's the end of the story. It shouldn't be that way. You can go and put updates on there, tell people a bit more about yourself, and, you know, um, fill out your author profile. So good on you for doing that, and
Thank
congratulations, Jen.
you.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been so lovely chatting with you, Bridgetti.
I really enjoyed getting to know you better. And for everyone watching, please go and have a look at Jen's books. The Year of the What and the beautiful cover that she's got, and then make your own break series, which I think is phenomenal. So go and grab a copy of that. Jen, thank you. It was fantastic, fabulous. Take
Yes,
care,
thank you
stay
so
safe,
much. Have a
and
beautiful day.
yeah, I'd love to have you back sometime. Take care.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching, everyone. You were watching Books with Bridgetti, and our special guest was Jennifer Lieberman today. Until next time, take care, stay safe.